Good evening, family. Ken Mills here with World Views. Now, tonight we have one of the most magnificent episodes that we're going to share this entire season. This is going to be deemed the respect episode. Now, when I think of respect, respect is hard to earn and easy to lose. But this one illustrious guest that I have coming on tonight, when I met him, it was mutual respect. He's one of the people in the comedy field that I have high respect for. And I'm just going to show you, we're going to go through his entire story and you're going to see why. So what I'd like for you all to do, just hang tight with us. When we come back from a quick commercial break, we'll have that illustrious guest here. And I promise you, we got stories for days. You're now here with World Views with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network.
Oh my God! I just got through watching a great show on Boss Up Houston Network. Have you heard? They're bossing up, okay? And I heard they're looking for you. Any podcasters, talk show hosts, if you're a writer or producer, we definitely need you. Come aboard and boss up.
Are you a small business owner that is struggling to promote your company?
Our topic today is, what's your status?
Shoot the dice at this point.
You just shoot the dice. Roll the dice.
So,
Yes.
Hey, how y'all doing? It's attorneys.
Victoria Blanco.
I love it.
Imagine being televised on a national platform. How about being a host or sponsor on a syndicated podcast? Or being featured on exclusive promotions and interview for your product to your ideal customer? Hi, I'm Kayla Sneed, and I'm head of sales with Boss Up Houston. And here at Boss Up, we like to help small business owners and entrepreneurs advertise, promote, or become a sponsor for one of our television, podcast, or radio shows. All you have to do is click the link down below to see if you qualify. I'll be seeing you soon.
This is Boss Up Houston, where we look up, stay up, and boss up.
The gentleman to my left here, when I met him, I was just amazed. This man had stories for days. He sounded like one of my uncles. Matter of fact, the uncle that I'm talking about, my family would know is Uncle Vernon. So this man here, he's one of the most premier comedians in Houston, Texas, and abroad, and a very genuine and good friend of ours. Mr. Jerry Wayne Longmire.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you for having me, Bill.
No problem. Welcome.
We've been talking about doing this for a minute. It's nice to get to sit down and do it finally.
That's right. That's right. So, Jerry, could you inform the audience, let them know who you are?
Man, I'm most important thing, I reckon, I'm a dad. First and foremost, I'm a dad and a husband and been a stand-up comic for a long time, off and on. I took a break for a minute and just out here trying to make my moves, trying to find the things that work for me and work in service of making people laugh.
Right. And one of the phrases that you use a lot, and my wife can attest to this is one of her favorite ones. Whenever she sees this on social media, she just dies laughing. It's time to make the ha-ha.
Oh, yeah. That's it, man. That's I look at it, it's everything we do is creation-based. So
right.
It's one of the things that I learned, I took a step back, and I tried to turn it off and tried not to do it anymore. And you figure out that things they seep through. It's like that flower growing through the crack in the sidewalk. It's going to keep coming back through, and you find out this is just what you're supposed to do. This is the job, and so that's the way I look at it. That's my mantra when I walk. Man, when I get there, I check in, let everybody know where I'm at. Now it's time to make the ha-ha. Now it's time to start the job.
Right, right. Because I know, just being in certain situations, it's a level of anxiety that takes place before you make the high, like a whole ritual that may go into making that
Yeah.
happen. So, kind of give us an insight into that.
Um, well, like a lot of people experience stage fright, and I've never had to deal with that too much. But there is a level of anxiety that occurs. None of us go to the show, get ready to perform, and we don't have a healthy set of expectations of what we want that show to be. And if you're anything like me, you go in there really wanting that show to be something every time. You don't want to let anybody down. So there's that level of anxiety. Are there enough people in the seats? Is the air conditioning right? Are all the environmental factors in place for there to be a good comedy show here? And then it's that level of anxiety of these things I'm working on. Well, to better, like I say, time to make the ha-ha, and then it's time to go to work. But that doesn't really show what really goes into being a comic. Because there's also all the hours spent writing the joke, creating the joke, going over the joke, practicing you know what I mean? There's the hours you spend on other stages getting to that moment of where, okay, tonight's the night. Tonight's the night I'm going to unleash this joke, and I've polished it, and I'm ready for it, and I want to see what it's going to do now, So there's a level of anxiety there, and I think it happens to a lot of young comics. They channel it in unproductive ways, drugs and alcohol. And I'm not knocking either of those. They're a lot of fun. But, everything in moderation. So I try to channel that anxiety in the show. I try to, actually these days, you get in the game for a little bit and you get to a point where you don't get it as much. And it kind of scares you that, oh no, I need that back. I need that energy. I need that. My favorite thing is to go in there and know I'm following somebody that's just going to beat that crowd to death. Because then that anxiety comes like, oh, I hope I can do what they did. You know what I mean? Right. So to me, that's a healthy way to experience that, to use that to your, use it in a positive manner, really.
Because, see, I could definitely agree with what you said as far as channeling that into non-productive or counterproductive things. I've experienced that.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to experience a mess of it.
Man, I mean,
every day was Sunday,
Yeah.
I'm not a savage.
So, I want to key in on a few points. Yeah, we got it. You're a very tenured comedian, and also you one of the best out here. But one thing I want to go back into, like, who is Jerry? Like, starting off, I know you hail from East Texas.
Yeah, originally. I came from a real big family. Not my specific immediate family. I just got the one sister, and but like my mom's family, my dad's family, both big families, and we're pretty poor. My mom's dad had a junkyard, and we lived at the back of that junkyard up in. The town is called Overton, Texas. It's like on the outskirts of Kilgore, Texas, and Kilgore, Texas is on the outskirts of something better than that. But you know what I mean. It was the closest decent-sized town we have, and we were just kind of out there in the sticks, out in the country. And so I came up there to the time probably I was about 11 or 12, and that's when the oil field really crashed really hard, and that's what my dad did. My dad worked in the oil field. And he got the opportunity to leave, and he took it. And I'm glad he did. I didn't like it at the time, but we ended up moving to Houston, and we lived in Denver Harbor for just a little bit, and then we ended up in Alief. And I ended up going to school all through Alief. I went to high school all through Alief and parts of middle school there. But yeah, man, my people were like, I do a joke about it on stage, but it's the truth. One half of my family were strict fundamentalist Pentecostals, like UPC, dancing in the aisles, moonwalking for Jesus, all the good stuff. And then the other half of my family is strict fanatic alcoholics. You know what I mean? And they were doing all the bad, all the other stuff, the drugs, the drinking, and the partying. So I think my dad really helped us kind of escape the a very divisional world. You know what I mean? Because growing up, you're pretty much exposed to family, and so one half of my family is crooks and thieves and drunks, and the other half of my family is crooks and thieves, but they love Jesus. You know?
Right. But I think that's everybody's family. You see?
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I just thought that's where I come from. And so we got to Houston, and we were on our own. And Alief was a strange place in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a pretty diverse place to grow up. I like growing up where I did in East Texas, you know, a lot of us were pretty poor, so it was mostly black and white. And it was just, we were the have-nots, you know. And when I came to Alief, all of a sudden I was going to school with Nigerians and Hispanic, South American, Guatemala, you know. Like I used to always hear New York was the melting pot or whatever. I was like, y'all ain't been to Alief, buddy. Because Houston's got a lot of mixture going on. So it was a bit of a culture shock. You know, you learn a lot, and you figure out your station and your place in life, you know. And a lot of that happened in Alief, I think.
Because, see, I heard you bring up Denver Harbor. Now, Denver Harbor is a neighboring, it's a neighborhood that neighbors or borders Fifth Ward, where I grew up at. So our relationship with them, it used to be a railroad track. That railroad track would run, if you coming off of Lockwood and you hang a right on Market, you come right there, McReynolds right there, the post office right there, and on the other side they had Fiesta. Fiesta was pretty much the only places that will go buy groceries. So it was a different dynamic. So black and brown would get along and everything like that. There'd be different things that go on, but for the most part, it was getting along.
I got my butt whooped a lot. That's what I remember. I used to tell people, I was like, that's how poor neighborhood I lived in was my mama bought me some Pro Wings from Payless that looked like Air Jordans, and I got beat up and robbed for my Pro Wings.
Yeah, it was tough over there.
Yeah.
It was tough over there.
It's a short learning curve. I mean, you either get by or you don't.
So you say Alief late 80s, early 90s. So I take it like the things to do back then, you go to Westwood Mall.
West Oaks Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the West Oaks Mall. My parents were still, so it was kind of a weird thing. Like after we came here, my mom was terrified of this city, you know. And people back home, they used to call Houston City of Sin. They just figured we'd come down here and sell our souls and hook up with the devil right away. And so my mom was terrified. So she was a little, excuse me. She didn't. She kind of kept me pretty sheltered at that point. So it was like, and because we were still kind of Pentecostal, like the Pentecostals didn't like going to the movies and stuff like that. So we weren't really allowed to do a lot of those things, which really meant we spent most of our time getting in trouble doing stuff we really shouldn't have been doing. You know what I mean? Breaking into empty houses and, you know, really causing a fuss and stirring things up. You leave kids bored too long, they're going to find something to do, and it's usually the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
That's right. Either it's going to be vice or something else that's nice.
Yeah.
That's what they used to tell me. Because
chasing girls, all that.
Yeah. So from that move from East Texas all the way to Alief, I know in your teenage years, I know this comedy just didn't pop out of you just all of a sudden. You probably been working on this forever. So back then, were you the class clown? Were you like that person that always would say that funny joke?
I didn't think I was. I thought I was kind of shy and quiet, and I didn't feel like I fit in a lot of the time. And you know, I've had this accent for a long time, and I didn't think I was. But what was really funny was after I really started doing stand-up full time, people would meet people that went to school with me and they're like, "Oh, that didn't surprise me at all." You know, that's always weird. And I'm like, you know, it's a weird thing to get to a place in life and figure out. I was thinking about this the other day. It's a weird thing to get to a place in life and figure out that you're doing what you've really always been doing. You know what I mean? And not even realize it, not know it yourself. But then I go back and I look at the pictures, and now the family, I was the clown, you know, or the black sheep, whatever you want to call it.
Right,
Sometimes it's dual duty, you know, but I was the one. I tell people, my mother, who's been passed on for a number of years, she used to say my name a certain kind of way. And when she said my name, she would go, Jerry Wayne. And it meant she'd had just about as much she could handle of me going over the line. And as I look back, I realized there was a whole lot of that was going on. And some of it I blame on my grandma, because we sit there as a kid and she liked to listen to albums, and she liked to listen to Jonathan Winters and Bill Cosby and Red Fox, some stuff I probably should have been hearing as a kid, Richard Pryor, and I was exposed to a lot of that and didn't realize I was mimicking it and emulating it. And it was a weird thing, because when I decided to start comedy, it was a total random. It was, I was working in the oil field. I was making a pretty good living, I had my career path pretty laid out, and something flipped a switch and decided that wasn't the direction I wanted to go anymore,
So I'll tell you this, like, when I was growing up, it was always, I would say, pressure for me to do well, for me to stay in the studies. But I was of a certain knowledge level to where I would lose focus because I was bored. Mm-hmm. So I used to come up with all these different wild jokes. And one time I came up with a wild joke, and I said it to my aunt. My aunt, who's like my mother, Lillian Boyd, she just had a birthday. And we were in her kitchen. And I told her, I say, because I used to speak real proper back then, I say, Aunt Lillian, I got a joke for you. I said, got 1Q, 2Q, 3Q, and 5Q. What's missing? She thought about it for a minute. Then she said 4Q. And then I said, yeah, 4Q. I bust out that. I got beat down, but at the same time.
Some of my funniest moments had a beat down right after them.
Yeah. But they still talk about that. Then I used to take like different songs, like Deck the Hall songs, and put family names in it, and then I roast people with singing them. And I just didn't realize that that's what I always wanted to do. So I feel you when you say that. Yeah, you think back.
It just happens one day, and you look back, and I realized I used to emulate a lot of these things, and I had this one uncle that had cable television. And we go over to his house, and he liked to watch stand-up comics. And he'd leave it going all the time on Comedy at Caroline's and stuff like that. And so there was a guy named John Panette. He's a big, heavy-set white dude comic from back in the 80s. And, boy, I really thought he was funny. I used to imitate him a lot. I knew all his jokes. I could do them all, 6 ways from Sunday. And my mom and her sisters all used to get a big kick out of that. So I was always doing that. And, you view your life one way. You grow up with this perspective of I'm this shy, quiet, kind of low-key dude, but then you look back and you hear other people's perspective on you, and you realize, okay, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, because, most of it, it's no secret. I used to be heavier. So when I was growing up, I was always the runt, but I was bigger than everybody. Or I always had to be at a certain age bracket that was a little bit above mine. So the only way that I could stay afloat is to be larger than life. So if it was anything that was going on, I tried to do it the most. Like if it was clothes, I tried to figure out a way to get the best clothes. Or if it was like, just swagger or saying something that was different or talking to girls, I'm always trying to go at somebody or this, that, and the other. I wasn't no fighter. I was just out there just trying to be fly. Yeah. So when I look back at it, I'm like, well, that's a portion of what's going on now. So
you're always a little extra.
Yeah. Like, instead of one drink, I might have 5. Yeah. And then I might buy you one. That's the type, Yeah.
I remember we didn't have a lot of money, and my parents were the type to spend a bunch of money on clothes. But at the time I was in middle school, I was really feeling sort of left out. Well, everybody was into these Z Cavaricci jeans. Do you remember Z Cavaricci's and Jabot jeans, a little baggy, and so I had, my sister was in Girl Scouts with this little gal that her brother was about 2 years older than me. We went to the same junior high. We went to Albright out there in Hayleaf. Well, he had grown out of some of his pants, and his mom gave them to my mom, and so I had these nice, they looked brand new to me. They felt brand new to me, Z Cavaricci's, why I couldn't wait to wear things to school, And boy, I came in that day, and I was feeling good. look. You know, your clothes can make you feel some kind of way. And I was like, God, had a little extra in my shit, or in my stuff.
Yeah,
while walking down there.
go ahead, be free.
And I'm walking down, and boy, I'm feeling good. Two little old gals and talk to me outside the door that don't normally have a lot to say to me. And I'm like, yeah, man. And here comes that dude, and he goes, oh, man, how you like my old jeans? And just boom, just knocked the bottom out of it right there. Boom, deflation.
Did anybody say anything?
Oh, yeah, everybody started laughing. I was like, oh, hell, man. All right.
He could have let you live.
Yeah, man, he could have let me ride that. You know, he was kind of a rich kid. I'm sure he thought he was being funny, and I'm sure he was, but I was like, boy, man, that sure took a sting out, took a wind out of the sail, you know?
Because the funniest things is, like, now, like, you see people that you grow up in the audience. Sometimes they may have changed for the better or for the worse. I try to be, you know, as cordial as possible, but sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes you just want to just get back, get that revenge sometimes.
You know, I used to spend a lot of energy on that when I was a little younger. And since I've become a dad, I've had to do a lot of figuring out the things that make me tick and why I think about things the way they do. And I've had to look at a lot of my views, and I've had experiences that have changed my views. You know, I used to be very, had very kind of a conservative mindset, a right-wingy kind of mindset. And then I took a trip to Iraq to entertain the troops and getting to see that up close and personal and spend some time with people that were different than myself and come back. That sort of stuff messes with you. It changes you, you know. You come back and you can't look at things the same way anymore because you know it's just not the truth anymore. And the further you get down that hole of what is the truth, then the further you get away from all these man, there was a line in a movie. I heard Chris Rock say it one time where he said, I don't like beliefs as much as I like ideals, because beliefs are hard to change, but ideals, they're fluid. They constantly change. So I try not to focus. I really work hard to. My wife calls it being mindful, and she's been my guidance and my teacher along the way. She has a really excellent outlook on the world. And I really try to focus on that. I don't always achieve it. You know, there's days that I'm just as negative and spiteful as any other, you know, creature walking around on this planet. But I do constantly work towards making those days fewer and farther in between.
Right. Because also, I mean, what I realize as well, my wife is probably one of the best therapist that ever is, because she can listen to certain things and give you an outlook. You might not listen or like it at first, but after time it weighs in, you get it.
You know, I'm already a big fan of Lucretia because I follow her page, and I like the way she explains things to people, and I think she's got a real interesting mindset.
Because, I mean, my mindset at first, I'm very aggressive, because I always been, like, in my upbringing, it's always been aggressive. Like the neighborhood that I'm from, you have to be.
Yeah, and the families we come from. We come from the type of families where you don't put up, you don't eat. You know what I mean?
You gotta be that wolf. And you know, sometimes you get that reminder that you don't have to be. No. That you could just be a regular person and then just understand that, look, there's a time and place for everything. That's why I started looking at things like this. Certain things shouldn't make me mad.
The best part of when you start hitting that level of awareness that I have noticed, and this is a little Schadenfreude, but the best part of hitting that awareness is you realize most of them negative people who thrive on that end up taking themselves apart anyways. You ain't got to do the work. You don't even have to invest any energy into it. People that thrive on that kind of energy and put that out in the world usually end up taking themselves down. Now, a few of them get by, or may look like they're getting by because they got a bunch of money, they got a lot of things going, but you don't know what their personal hell is behind the scenes. Right. You're seeing the social media image of what their life is, but I have found that, you know, I don't know a lot. This is what I always tell people. I'm 44 years old, and the only thing I'm sure about is I don't know a damn thing. Exactly. The older I get, the less sure I am about anything I know.
Because for the most part, I have to catch myself. Sometimes, you know, I might post something that may just be a thought and put it into existence. Like I might just say something about trust, or this, that, and the other, and people will look at that and be like, oh, who has done him wrong? And then, you know, there's a lot of people that have my back on that, and I had to tell them, nah. Then sometimes I have to stop and I have to be like, look, whatever you speak into existence, you never know who else's perspective. They may take it a certain way and they may look at it like, oh, it's a problem, or somebody might look at it like it's a veiled threat or something like that. So that's why I always be careful. And my mom always told me, she said, you know, don't worry about the people that wrong you because the universe can whoop their ass anyway.
It seems to happen. It really seems to catch up with them. And, you know, I've paid my share for a lot of wrongs I did, too, when I wasn't thinking in such a correct manner or thinking in a better manner like I do now. But, you know, I did a lot of hurtful things, a lot of people when I was younger, and took some time to have that come back around, but it comes.
Oh, yeah.
It'll come find you.
Oh, yeah, full circle.
When the universe is ready for you to do your time, it will come hunt you down, you know.
So,
Ain't nothing like having a blue warrant from the universe. You know what I mean?
it ain't no ATW.
Because they find you.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to hold on to that thought. But family, what we're going to do, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we return, we'll have more. So hang in here. Also, we got a special prize later. You're now tuned in with World Views with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network.
Our new house is amazing. Great street, huge yard.
There is a bit of an issue with our neighbor's fencing. At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
Which helps us save even more.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Peter.
Touche.
What? I'm down.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
If you like this video, please share it.
And hit the subscribe button to watch more great Geico videos if you... Hey, guys, can you please watch the begonias? Just planted those.
Sorry.
What are you doing here? Red Table Talk, the Estefans. Time to take the table to a whole new place. It's coming to Miami. 3 different women, 3 different generations. We're loud, we're proud. Let's go.
We're talking about relationships, love, sexuality.
Oh my gosh. We all know that you are fuerte. Yes, I'm a tough woman, but I'm very vulnerable. Like muchas Latinas. In order to move forward, you have to go to those places. I like boys. I like girls. I like both. Honesty will set you free. We are putting all of that on the table. Red Table Talk via Stefans. Be a part of the conversation. Only on Facebook Watch.
So, Jerry, I know we kind of skimmed across the comedy side, but I'm interested to know, you heavily tenured in comedy. When did you start?
First time on stage was February 10th, 2004, Houston, Texas, at the Laugh Stop. My first open mic. And it was terrible. It was real terrible. It was so terrible, I didn't do it again for about another 2 weeks. And then I finally came back and got over my little hurt feelings and stuff and got back up there and went back after it, you know.
What made you feel that it was terrible?
I just, you know, you don't get, you know, the first time you go do comedy, a lot of your friends come out.
Right.
You know, you got a lot of friends when you start comedy that all will come to a show. And I had about 30 of my friends there. Of course, they laughed at everything I did. But what I had noticed is I've been sitting there watching comics go up all night, and there's about 60 people in the room, and none of them other people was laughing. You know, my friends was laughing. But then the next time I went up, I made sure they weren't there. I went by myself, and I was like, it's some other people I want to make laugh. I already make these idiots laugh, you know?
Right, right.
So it was that date, and then it was a few weeks after that and then it quickly became a all the time thing. It took over that quick. I mean, it was. I had wanted to do it for a while. At least I'd had the mindset that I thought maybe I could do it. And I had never, it's really funny, I've only paid to see 3 comedy shows in my life. And 2 of them were about a week before I started comedy. So the very first time I ever saw a comedy show live, to even go back a little farther, I was a repo man. Repoing cars and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not great. It's bad optics. But I repoed this car and took it to the lot, and they were going to sell the car in the auction or whatever. And so before they did that, we'd always go through the cars. Well, this car had a box of cassettes. And all these cassettes were Sam Kinison, Bill Hicks, Richard Pryor. It was just every stand-up comic you ever heard of. Some you ain't heard of, you know. And I said, well, I'm going to take that. And I took that and I put that in my truck. I started listening to them. And I fell in love with it. And so I was always sort of talking about, this is what I want to do. I think this is what I want to do, But I didn't make any moves towards actually doing it. I was dating a girl at the time that I think she got tired of hearing me talk about it. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, let's go to a comedy show. So at the time, we went to the Comedy Showcase, which was on the northbound side of 45 at the time. This goes a little ways back. It was in a strip center. And we went there and we saw a great show. In fact, one of the comics I saw on that show ended up becoming a lifelong friend of mine until he passed. But he was hilarious, and I really enjoyed it. And I still know one of the other guys, Jim Holder, is a professional comic work today. He was one of the comics on that show that I saw that night. And that was a good night. But there was a guy I really loved out of Houston named Ralphie May. And Ralphie May had just won second place in Last Comic Stand, and everybody in the country knew his name for a minute. And he was powerful, He was funny. And so she got me tickets to see Ralphie May. January 31st, 2004. He was headlining the Laugh Stop. We went, and I never laughed so hard in my life. He beat that crowd to death for 2 hours. It was incredible. And I walked out there just like a lot of fanboys or whatever, I went up there to buy his DVD, and I was like, I really want to be a comic. And, he could have blown me off or been a jerk, but he was like, if you really want to come try comedy, come up here on Monday night, Laugh Stop, and do it. And so he signed my DVD. Show up Monday, don't be a pussy. Ralphie May. And that was my first time. Was that following Monday. I went up on stage, and like I said, it wasn't great. But I stuck with it, kept coming back. I entered in Houston's Funniest Person, was a big contest that used to happen every year in Houston, primarily at the Laugh Stop. And I entered it that year about a month in, and I got second place. And the winner that year was Sarah Talamash, who's really talented, really funny comic, really good friend of mine. And then I was bit. Called my boss drunk in the middle of the night, left him a voicemail, quit my job. I decided that, told him I was probably going to be on HBO pretty soon. Watch for me in the funny papers, that kind of thing. And I'll never forget, I did all that about 2 in the morning. He called me about 8 o'clock next morning. I just got your voicemail, man. You serious? Yeah, I'm serious, man. All right, well, I hope to see you on the HBO. That was the end of it. And then you go broke and you live in your car for a while. But it was a good time. It was the Laugh Stop during that time period. We always excel. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about this the other day. And he was talking about, they said, what's your method for, you come up with these big ideas about the world and everything? And he said, they're like, do you sit in an armchair and ponder things? And he was like, no. He goes, I interact with other people in my community, other peers in my community, other scientists that look at things differently the way I do. And when you have that sort of relationship, it brings everybody up. And that's the way the Laugh Stop was at that time period. There were pros, there were up-and-comers that were coming out of nowhere and killing it. And, there's people that weren't doing so well. But you had this community of mentorship and peers, and it was a little cliquey, and they were a little rough on you, but if you took the lessons to heart and you tried to learn something from them, then you could get better, and you could get better really fast, especially if you're getting a lot of stage time. And that's what happened to me. I was in a community of peers who were all a lot better than me, and it was easy to improve really quickly, especially every time you come off stage, you got some pro going, hey, here's what you did wrong. You know, you think you killed it. You come off stage thinking you just beat them to death, and it's a pro pull you aside like, that's hacky as hell. Stop doing that, you know, or whatever. But that you need that. You need that. It's not always nice, and sometimes there are people that are mean-spirited about it, but you do need that mentorship. You do need that.
Do you feel that level of mentorship is still existent?
It's I don't feel like it's as strong as it was then. I feel there's a lot of great things in the scene right now, especially in the Houston scene. People are like kinder to each other. There's a lot more opportunities to get on stage, but I don't think. I think the fear of offending anybody or the fear of being painted as somebody mean-spirited has caused a lot of the pros, especially the guys that have been in the game a long time, to not want to waste their emotion or time trying to help sometimes. And I can understand, you know, sometimes things going that way. I try to dole it out to the comics that I take interest in. You know, there's young comics that interest me, and I'm interested in what they're doing and how they're going about it. And if I have anything positive or helpful to add to them, or if I can even say, like, you know, hey, stop getting so drunk before a show, man. This is a job. Show up on time. Something, you know, whatever I can throw out there, I put out there. And I there is still a level of that. I have a different perspective on it because I'm a producer over at the Whiskey Brothers, and I spend a lot of time in a think tank with a lot of other really good comics who, the one thing I'll say about the Whiskey Brothers is when we go in there every Monday night, we all leave with new ideas because we all sit there and pick apart what each other's doing, but we also support what each other's doing. And so there's a level of mentorship that I receive from that maybe not, you know, everybody in the scene gets.
So for those who may not be familiar, the Whiskey Brothers is Rob Mungle, Sam Damaris, Slade Ham, and Trey Tutson. All right.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, most of the people that we just named are heavily recognized in the comedy scene in the United States and abroad.
Yeah, they're all, you know, Trey being the youngest of the bunch, but if he isn't one of the funniest people in Houston, you tell me who he is, because I've seen very few people do what he does, you know. That dude's a young powerhouse. Sam, me and Damaris were in the open mic scene at the same time, but he was moving, you know, you could tell he was headed for big things. He was so strong back then. And I met Slade back then around that time. Slade owned a comedy club in Beaumont. And Slade gave me my first road gigs, and he gave a lot of people their first stuff out there. It was a great room and a good scene. And, you know, Rob's, I'm not even 100% sure Rob didn't start the Houston scene. I don't know how old he is. But he's been the granddaddy of Houston comedy for a long time. He's tough.
Right. So I hear you. And also I can attest to that there is a portion of mentorship that's out here. And for some of the same reasons that you said, folks don't do it. Like what I also would like to ask the younger comedians to do as well, you know, when you come into it, find you someone who you respect to talk to.
Yeah, you got to find somebody you respect, or you're just not going to listen to what they got to say.
Right. Find you someone that you're going to respect. And then, you know, don't pester them, you know, talk to them. And guess what? When they hear what you have to say on stage or they see how you're moving about, they'll give you those tidbits. But you just got to connect, you know what I'm saying? And also understand that there ain't no ego in this game either, because you knew. There's a lot of people that traveled this whole circuit before you. So if they traveled the circuit before you, they may have a few stories that can help you from hitting pitfalls that they have avoided or may have went through.
Yeah, man. One of the you know, there's been this pendulum. We were talking about this today. My buddy was talking about this, and he said, you know, there's this pendulum of where all these comics were trying to be super woke. So now it's almost going the other direction. You get the Tony Hinchcliffe situation, stuff like that. And I said, yeah, there may be that pendulum going on, but at the end of the day, there's not been a pendulum on people focusing on the wrong reasons to do this, you know. Like, I still go back to that Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor conversation. Did you make people laugh? Did they like your jokes? Who gives a damn what anybody else got to say about it? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, that's the job, you know. You can be as woke or edgelord or whatever it is you want to be, but did you make them laugh? Did they like your jokes? That's why you get booked. That's where the money comes in, you know. That's the only way to monetize this. You got to be funny, you know.
Yeah, like my man Louis said on Coming to America. I used to wash the lettuce, then I used to mop the floors. Now I'm on fries. But next week, when I get on the register, that's when the big money comes.
Oh, I ain't seen that movie in a long time. Did you watch the second one? I didn't even watch it yet.
Yeah, I watched the second one.
I'm so slow to get to things. I'm so behind on pop culture. I don't get really in a hurry to catch up on things.
But it's certain things, like, I don't watch TV at all. Like, most of the time I watch terrestrial, like, internet shows or anything with content, like intellectual content, because I'm trying to build my mind. Because a lot of stuff that's on TV has already been rehashed. Like, everything that came out in the 90s is basically being retreaded now. So I just watch certain stuff that build a certain level of thought or something that I may be truly interested in. That's one of the reasons why I started this, because I was like, I know it's others that's out there that feel the same way.
Yeah. I catch myself watching a lot of things, a lot of times just almost to study them, to take it apart, you know. Like I love well-crafted comedy sitcoms, like all the way back from All in the Family, Sanford and Son, to the ones that are occurring now. So I catch myself watching, even if I'm not interested in it, I'll watch it to see if I can see what everybody else is getting out of it, or what, you know, how they're going about writing the funny and putting it across in dialogue and presenting it in the TV format that is getting the laughs, the ratings, and, you know, in the end.
So I'll say this, one of my favorite shows was Martin, right? Because Martin, some type of way, he must have had the perfect writer, or he's just great at improvisation.
I think it was a lot of him.
Yeah, because I mean, it was
Martin's a beast, man. You know, I don't know what he's doing now, but that guy, people forget what a strong stand-up he was. He was a murderer on stage. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys that came from that era that are just killers, you know, and people forgot. People forgot how good they really were. I always liked one of my favorites that was a comedian-driven sitcom was the Bernie Mac show. But I saw Bernie Mac when I was probably in like 22, 23, somewhere in there. Was the first time I was exposed to Bernie Mac. It was on the Kings of Comedy. And he was the best one on there. Nobody could hold a candle to him. I mean, if you watch the rest of it, and the rest of those guys are, D.L. Hughley, I saw a video where D.L. Hughley hosted a showcase, and it was all big names. And D.L. Hughley did 10 minutes up front that nobody else could follow and ruined the whole showcase because he was so funny. But if you watch the Kings of Comedy, Bernie was the killer on there. There was nobody that brought the fire he brought to that stage.
That's why he was last.
Yeah, he had to be. There's no way. No, there's no way anybody could have followed him. So I really loved his show. I liked his vulnerability and his approach. And, you know, I liked his breaking the fourth wall, talking to the camera. I liked a lot of what he did for that show. Found it really entertaining.
I did too, and I liked the fact that he was himself. Cause like you can pretty much see, like on certain shows you can see where footprints or DNA of themselves are just embedded into that show. Cause from his stand-up where he started to talk about those kids, then it permeated to that, and you could just see this is how he actually felt. Now he held back a little bit, like as far as whooping them or cussing or this, that, and the other, but you could see that's how he was.
But the vulnerability was still there. And that's honestly, that's my, that's what I love the most about comedy is, and that's the particular, Richard Pryor was a big influence for me coming up, watching him, because Richard Pryor, I mean, what's that, Live in Hollywood concert? There's Live Sunset Strip, and there's the other one. He comes out, he had the worst year of his life, and he comes out and talks about it, and he gives it to you, he feeds it to you on a platter, and it's one of the funniest things you ever hear in your life. And the same thing, Bernie did the same thing. He would talk about his family. When Bernie talks about being in that courtroom, and he tells that judge, Your Honor, I'm going to take these kids for 6 months a year, and my brother, and he said, my brother got up and walked out of the courtroom, and if I ever see, I ain't seen the son of a bitch since, but when I do, there's going to be a misunderstanding. That's one of the funniest lines. But it's real. It's a vulnerable. His brother left him high and dry dealing with his sister's kids, man. It's funny.
But see, I think I know what you're talking about, but Richard Pryor said, because I saw it, it was, he had on a red tuxedo.
Yeah.
And a black shirt. And he went ape for about an hour, but they said the show before it, he didn't do so well. And he went and regrouped, and he came back out, and he did what he needed.
I didn't know that, but
yeah.
I know he talks about catching on fire, freebasing, and all that stuff, and he talks about shooting the car and his wife leaving. I mean, he talks about all of it. You know, he gives you the messy right there on the plate. He knows everybody's already been talking about him, so he just comes out there and owns it. That's my favorite type of comedy. There's a handful of guys that have done it very well, and there's a handful of guys that are really good storytellers that get away with it. And it's what I strive, what I aspire for. It's what I like.
Yeah, same here. Because Bernie Mac's one of my favorites. I also, I used to love Red Fox. The way Red Fox would carry on, he'll come out there. It was just basically like, those folks I relate to because they were in my family.
Nah,
it was somebody.
They were characters. Yeah.
Yeah, it was somebody.
I can understand that.
One like my mother's youngest brother. Now he's a little bit sick now, but Uncle Vernon, this man here, will have you laughing. This man was like the family cook. He made all the Thanksgiving meals, Easter's, you name it. It could be any day of the week. He making something. And he'll sit me right there because my mom, I would be working, my dad be working, and I'd be in the house. And he'd be right there. He'd have me, he'd say, sit down here. And he'd just be talking to me and be peeling potatoes and talking. And he'll say some of the most outlandish things, do the most outlandish things. And it just, I would say, it encaptured me. I was like, damn, you know.
He was a constant level of character.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, this dude cool as shit.
Yeah.
You used to be a pimp. Yeah, man, I was a pimp, you know what I'm saying? And he'll say something real fly, and he'd be like, wow. That's how I got so big, because I was sitting up under him eating all that soul food. Used to drink gravy for breakfast.
I had an uncle. He was my mom's younger brother. He's passed on. I do a joke about him in my act. I call him Uncle Touche, but
yeah.
Uncle Bobby. And he was only about 8 years older than me, 9 years older than me maybe. And so we spent a lot of time together. He's my mom's younger brother. We spent a lot of time together. But he was like a Nashville musician and a singer, and just a run around ne'er-do-well most of the time. You know, he DJ'd at the clubs and stuff. And I thought he walked on water. I just thought he was the most interesting person. He's taught me how to talk to girls.
Right.
In fact, my wife tells a story about the first time she met him, and we were all hanging out at my mom's house with my mom playing spades, and my wife said, he kept giving me the same wink you do. I was like, where do you think I learned that trick? I was like, I've been stealing old man's moves for a long time, you know.
Because, like, see, that's what most people don't understand. Like, I can speak in my perspective. Comedy for me comes from a more home-based place. Like, most of the jokes that I tell is actual truth. Like, I try to break out some of the vulnerability. You know, at first I was embarrassed to talk about some of the stuff, but now I don't care. Because at the end of the day, you got to laugh at pain. Because at a certain point, you had pain or something that was traumatic happen, but you had to make yourself laugh about it to get through it.
Well, that's if you've been using laughter as a defense mechanism for a long time, especially comedy. We joke around at my family. I got 3 applause breaks doing my mom's eulogy. You know what I mean? But it's the worst day of my life.
Right.
But as I was saying goodbye to my mama. You know, and I'm sure I did it at your show. I do that story about my mom on stage about, you know, her calling me the different name and everything. And that was my litmus test with my wife. That was to me, it was my Richard Pryor moment, that live Sunset Strip, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It was, I was like, I got to get this out of my system, and I got to go back to it. And if I do this, and I can make this the worst day of my life funny, and I can make it play on stage, then I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to just stop fighting God or whatever's driving me this direction. I need to just jump on board, wheels up, and say, let's do this, you know, again. And it did. It worked. And that's the comedy that I care the most about. I want there to be a legacy later on of these are the people that meant something to me, and this is why they meant something to me, and this is where I come from. I often I've said this before, that I don't think I so much write jokes as you write jokes and you write punchlines, but a lot of my stuff is stories, and they already wanted to be jokes. They already existed in the universe. These things happened and they were funny. Mm-hmm. And these things happened and they were hilarious because of this. They already wanted to exist. So it's not so much writing jokes as living in the service of the joke. You know what I mean? And just bringing it to life. Just being that vessel that says, okay, I observed these times. Let me share it. Let me bring it out and share it with people, you know?
So, just a question, because I hear you talking about writing. So, do you ever struggle with brevity versus detail?
Oh, yeah. You listen to me? I'll never shut up. I'm the worst. That's what I do, is I write a joke, and I do it about 6 times, then I cut about half the words out of it, and then I try it again, and then chop it down, and it gets chopped down. They call it streamlining. I call it a massacre, because if I sit down and write it, like if I come up with an idea, like recently I'm working on a new bit that I'm sort of playing with about my love for opera music. It's a strange thing, right? And so it's funny on its ear, just because I'm playing against type, that you don't look at me, listen to me, and go, oh, this guy listens to a lot of opera. So I'm working on this bit, and when I wrote the bit out the first time, it was 3 pages long. One bit, one punchline. So I'm like, you gotta chop all that up and get down to the beat of the matter. And I'm still working on it. We'll see how good it turns out.
I want to hear that one. I think Pavarotti gonna be in there some type of way. So, I just want to ask you about your current pursuits now, because I know you, since the pandemic is kind of waning at the moment, you've been on the road back to back to back. So, do you have any events, anything coming up where the folks can come see you?
Yeah, the biggest thing, and we talked about this a little bit on the Whiskey Brothers podcast Monday night, but I wanted to wait till we did the show tonight before I released the ticket sales info and everything. Is July 8th, on my birthday. I'll be turning 44 this year. I had this planned last year, and the pandemic got in the way of it, but so July 8th, I'm going to be headlining the Secret Group here in Houston, Texas, and we're doing a live recording. I'm recording my 1-hour special that I've spent many years writing, and it's called The Wrecking Yard. And it's about my family and where I come from and my people and my current family, my kids, my wife, and, my place in my station in life now. And so we're going to be recording it, and we're trying to see what we can do with that. We're going to have 3 cameras set up. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to pack the place out and have a good time. It's going to be a big celebration. We got music. I got a guy writing me some theme music right now.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. I'm bringing my wife to it, because I know my wife.
Oh, yeah. You definitely got to bring the creation, man. She'll have a good time. She'll enjoy that show. Man. I got that coming up. June 25th, I'm going to be in Nacogdoches, Texas, headlining Bonita Creek Hall which is probably the closest I'm gonna be to East Texas in a long time. And I was scheduled to leave in October to go back and do some military tours through my buddy Slade Ham, and those have been postponed now, so it's probably gonna be pushed off. So it looks like January I'm going to Thule Air Force Base in Greenland to entertain the troops there and a couple other bases around the world. So get back to doing that fun traveling again, where you can see some stuff.
You talk about Greenland. Greenland probably the safest place to go in the pandemic. You know what happened last time? Like, how they just...
They was looking at, they said, originally when he came to me with the schedule, he said, all right, so we're looking at early October. And so I quick fast. I'm a big boy, and big boys are supposed to be okay in the cold. I'm the only one that don't have that. I have worked outside in Texas summers my whole life. I got thin blood. At 104, I'm fine. 110, I'm okay. I'm sweating, but I'm okay. But boy, you get the thermostat below 60, I got long johns on. I can't fly with that. I can't handle it. And so the first thing I went and did was go look up the Wikipedia. I said in October, in Thule Air Force Base, the average temp is negative 19 degrees. And I was like, whoo, what? I could probably survive. I'd probably be okay. And then he said, oh, I think we're pushing the trip back to January. I said, God mighty, I'm going to die. I'm going to be a frozen fat sickle stuck out there on the runway.
Man, I'm pretty sure they're going to have some heat for you. But, you know, once again, Jerry, I just want to thank you for coming by.
Oh, man, I love you, man. Thank you for having me out, dude.
Man, brother, man, we've been talking about this a lot, people. Like, from last year, we spoke together about it, and then this year, it was like, hey, just pull the trigger and do it.
That's about the time I did your show at the library. That was a fun show. Me and Zide. That's the only show I ever been to where I pulled up in the neighborhood and I came up behind the block and dude started jogging beside my truck. What you want, dude? And he started listing off substances. I said, oh man, I'm not here for that. I'm one of the comics. And, oh, you're one of the comics? Oh man, she'll show you where to park right over there. Whole time jogging by my Yukon going down the highway. You know?
Hey, that was a, what you call that, open air market?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. I was like, hell, I wish I wanted some. I bet I could get it.
But yeah, that was one of the greatest shows.
That was fun, man. That was a fun crowd. Ray did an excellent job hosting it. We had a good time that night.
And, you know, for everybody who doesn't know, last year I did a string of shows, maybe about 10 to 11 produced shows. And these shows was in the height of the pandemic. I mean, these are going to be memories. If you didn't get a chance to go.
You just missed it.
Yeah, I still got the film, though. Well, I got the film. I know you probably got it, or I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah, I ain't never seen it yet, but I sure would like to see it.
I got you. So this is the time of the show where we give our roundabout here. So tonight, we talked about respect a little bit, but basically wanted to show you a parallel, right? So me and Jerry may look different, but from our conversation, you see we have a lot in common. Basically, some of the same things that he mentioned, same things I went through too. So this is what I want to tell the world. Like, stop looking at things from a separatist perspective. Look at things from a holistic perspective. Even though we may not look the same, we had the same experiences, the same issues. When you start to think about racism, we're going to call it the elephant in the room, racism. When I think about racism, I think about a series of actions that are systematic toward oppression. Not words. You call me whatever, but if you can't stop me from going to this store, I can go. If you can't stop me from getting this job, that's fine. Words don't hurt. The actions of the system does. So what you have to understand too, that sometimes these actions or these oppressive things that happen within the system affect other races as well. And you start to look at it from a socioeconomic situation. So we may look different, but we all at the same page, we all at the same level. Our different things that we went through, life experiences may vary in certain places, but they're basically the same. So stop being in that divisive thought process. Look toward understanding individuals. Because when you start talking to folks, you never know. You might have a good friend here. You might have somebody that has a mutual respect for you. So that's what it is. And respect can only be achieved through self-awareness, understanding, and evaluation. So look deep into yourself first, see what may be wrong, and try to fix it. Also, don't be scared to go get therapy help or speak to someone, get counseling. But overall, respect, like I said in the beginning, is hard to get and easy to lose. So guard yours very closely. So respect everything around you, respect your people, and love your people, because they might not be here forever. So what I'd like to leave y'all with this, next week will be the season finale of the show. And we're going to have 2 illustrious guests come on, but it's going to be a totally different dynamic. I also clue you guys in to some of the things that we'll be doing differently going forward at that time. But I just want to thank y'all. Thank y'all for rocking out with us, hanging with us tonight. Be sure to tune in next week, Thursday at 8 p.m. Also, Jerry, you didn't tell them your IG, your Facebook.
You can find me at Jerry Wayne Live on Instagram and just Jerry Wayne Longmire on Facebook. And I usually keep my schedule pretty updated, so you can see everything you want to see on there. We got some fun projects coming up.
Go see him. I swear, go see him, because you know what? I went to see him. I even went to Galveston. I drove down to Galveston one day and we'll go see him. Shout out to MC Lotto. That was her room, and we ate good. We had a good time.
We had a good time at night.
Yeah. So, y'all, once again, open your minds, open your hearts, and stay safe out there. You're now with World Views with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network. See y'all next week.